Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Thursday, June 13th, 2019. On today's episode, we're going to discuss our recent trips to theme parks. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Paul.
Hello, hello.
And Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
So I have returned, guys. I was away in Orlando. Before that, Jacob was away in Orlando. And before that, Ben was away in Florida. So I think over the course of something like 5 days, we were all in Florida, but we didn't see each other.
Yeah, there was literally people at my Florida-based work event who were staying the extra day to go to your Florida-based work event. It was very interesting.
Yeah, and Ben was leaving right when you were getting there, I think. So, yeah, it was crazy. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about here is I got to experience the new ride at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. It's Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Jacob went to Walt Disney World to cover the Toy Story 4 junket, but in the process got to explore all of Walt Disney World, including all the new stuff. And Brad, when he was out here in Los Angeles, got to experience Star Wars Galaxy's Edge for the first time. So we're going to discuss all of that. I guess let's start with the thing that happened soonest, and that was the Wizarding World of Harry Potter stuff. So I went out to Orlando, Florida. Universal flew me out, should be noted. And this is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. This is a new roller coaster that they have built in the Wizarding World in Universal's Islands of Adventure. So this is in Hogsmeade. This is basically, the setting is the Forbidden Forest from the movies. Not that we've spent a lot of time there. And it's basically a roller coaster, which is part roller coaster, part dark ride. I've been describing it as like 75% like Everest from Animal Kingdom mixed with like, 25% dark ride with, actual animatronics. To me, it actually feels like almost a response to the criticism Universal has been getting in recent years. There's no 3D glasses. There's no screens. This is practical. There's animatronics. It's exhilarating. It's thrilling. You feel the G's. It is a return to form, I think, for Universal. Not that they've been doing bad, but like it feels like they've, it's big and epic. Like the size of space that this queue and ride takes up, I think the Universal creative guy told me that basically you could fit Forbidden Journey and all of Hogsmeade in the same amount of land. So
I'll ask about the space, Peter, because this is the former location of Dragon Challenge, which before that was Dueling Dragons, which was a massive, huge, inverted roller coaster that used to dominate the skyline of Islands of Adventure, and it kind of broke immersion when you walked into the Wizarding World because everything was so carefully themed. But there was this existing roller coaster that was iconic, but you looked out over the skyline of this quaint wizard village, and suddenly there was this giant metal roller coaster. Whereas it seems like this one's been built below the new tree line, so you walk in and you really doesn't break immersion, right?
Yeah, no, it's hard to see actually. They planted 1,200 trees to create this forest, and it's pretty impressive. And the line itself goes through this whole location, which is where Hagrid studies the magical creatures. And it's not a location we've seen from the movies, or as far as I know, it's not in the books. So it's not so I guess that's probably the negative here is the other queue lines at the other Wizarding World rides are locations we've seen in the film, so you get to there's lots of photo ops to feel like you're in that world, and there's a lot of props that we've seen in the movies and stuff like that. Here, not so much. There's a lot of references to creatures and stuff like that, and it does look cool. The theming is on par with the other rides, but there isn't as much to take your photo next to. There's no sorting hat or anything like that.
I imagine that could be cool for some serious Potter fans, because this is as you're saying, instead of a recreation, it's actually a brand new corner of the world, something brand new. So that's a reason for people who are Harry Potter fans, but maybe aren't necessarily theme park junkies, have an excuse to visit, because it's saying, hey, come stand in line in an area that's been approved by J.K. Rowling. It's part of the official canon because it's here, and it's always overseen and approved by her. But it is something completely new. So at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because I feel like people could be excited by that too.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh, and I should mention, you do get to see the back of Hagrid's hut, which I think is in another ride, the Flight of the Hippogriff. So they still have that other coaster there, that little family coaster. So you do get I guess, one little location from the movies. But the ride, because people probably want to hear about the ride. I was not prepared for how fast this ride goes. Like, it accelerates from 0 to 10 in no amount of time, and you are in these vehicles that are basically a reproduction of Hagrid's motorbike. So that motorcycle with the sidecar, and you can either ride in the motorcycle seat or the sidecar seat. If you're in the motorcycle seat, you are elevated a little bit higher, and you also get to hold on to the handles, and there's moments where you actually have to do something with your bike. I'm not going to spoil it here. And if you're in the sidecar, you're much lower to the track, which I think probably makes it feel like you're moving faster. I will say I did it in daytime and nighttime. The nighttime, I think, was more exhilarating because you don't see the track in front of you, and it feels more unexpected. There's unexpected twists and turns in this roller coaster track. I'm not a roller coaster person. I'm more of, I love theme parks for the theme, and rarely does a themed roller coaster happen, and when it does, usually it's just painted on, literally. It's rare that we get something like Everest, which is, really feels like you're experiencing a story, and I feel like this is in that category, that you actually are experiencing a story. We have these moments of these fast moving roller coaster moments, but then it slows down and you experience these life-size animatronics of Hagrid and these magical creatures, and then it will speed up again. It's like these little breaks. I do think, this feels faster than any of the roller coasters I've experienced at the two theme parks, Disney and Universal. I'm sure Hulk is probably faster or something, but maybe it's because you're accelerating a couple times during this ride, and there's some twists and turns that are really fun. I know there's some ride videos out there somewhere you could probably find. I know that they're telling people not to bring their cameras on the ride. We weren't allowed to bring our camera on the ride, but we did post a whole vlog from this opening day, so you can see some of the cast of Harry Potter there at the magical ceremony. There was some magic being done there, and you can also see our walkthrough of the queue and get a look at the attraction. I posted it online, I think, just about like 30 hours ago, and so far it's gotten like 30,000 views, which is kind of insane. So,
I have a few questions about this, Peter. I've watched a ride POV because I have no self-control, and I don't know. I probably won't be able to get down to Universal until next year at the earliest. So one thing that impressed me from the POV, and I want to hear this from you, is that it reminded me a lot of rides we'll get to in my discussion, which is like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, for example, at Disney. Is an amazing roller coaster because even though it may not be as fast or as intense as others, it is built so carefully into the scenery so that even the mildest curve, you're seeing something, you are swerving around something, there's a visual for you to experience. And from the POVs that I saw, the way you weave in and out of ruins and around trees and through caves, it feels like even though there could be thrill junkies who want loops, who want faster speeds, who want more G-forces pulled from higher heights, it feels like the way this coaster is built into its environment adds more thrills than this would have, which is plastered down on a flat field, right?
Yeah, no, I think you basically said what my answer would be. You definitely nailed it here. I think this is the rare ride, which I don't think there's many rides that you can put that this category fits, where it will satisfy the thrill junkies and it will also satisfy the people that want the theme and the animatronics. Like, I think like Radiator Springs Racers at Disney California Adventure is also another one of those rides that does that, and Everest. But I feel like usually you get one or the other. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually something is fast and thrilling and isn't themed, or usually it's themed and it's, a dark ride that moves slowly through, from room to room. This definitely fills both of those categories.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for people who want surprises, but there's some really cool, like, modern coaster tech here. Like, there's one trick that's already been employed really well in Everest. Even if you've ridden Everest and Animal Kingdom, you know what that is. But there's another one. There's another piece of ride technology that's used to simulate escaping from a plant creature. And if you want to Google this or look it up for a ride video, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you know coaster tech, I'm not going to spoil it. How was that sensation, Peter?
It is frightening. It is really scary. I know they do something similar on one of the other Harry Potter rides, but I feel like it's much better employed here. I hate to like spoil those moments, even though if you look at the warning sign when you're getting on the attraction, it kind of like warns you of certain sensations, which would tell you what's going to happen, if that makes sense. So, I mean, you can watch a video online. I'll link to our vlog, which is kind of spoiler free if you want to check that out. I highly recommend it. It's my favorite of the Wizarding World attractions. I got to ride it twice, and I want to ride it again. This morning when it opened, I guess I had a 10-hour line, so maybe wait a while. Yeah, I don't think it
Nothing is worth 10 hours. I can't imagine anything I'd wait 10 hours for.
Yeah. And also, it was raining a lot in my visit to Florida, which it often happens. You know, Florida likes to rain. So even this morning, I heard it's been raining there off and on. So, you know, that might extend that 10 hours a bit, too. So, okay, a couple other things I wanted to briefly touch on in my trip to Orlando. I got to experience this new restaurant they built in City Walk called Big Fire, which is a new open fire concept where, like, basically they're grilling meat over this huge open fire, which is in this open kitchen, and the place is built to be kind of like a summer home and be homey and stuff. It's good. I'll have a video on the food there. Everything was very tasty. They have this cowboy ribeye with this, I don't know what the sauces they put on top of it, but it was awesome. And they have like the s'mores dessert where you like make your s'mores at your table with like Reese's peanut butter cups. Like it looks amazing. So maybe check that out next time you're staying at Universal. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, or actually I want to talk about two hotels. I stayed in the Aventura Hotel, which is the first time I've been there. This is a new hotel. It's kind of shaped like a fidget spinner, and it is kind of like I guess it's being billed as kind of like a hotel for millennials, and it's a hotel of the future. When I walked into this hotel, there was like little robots roaming around, offering people candy, offering people, to answer questions. Autonomous robots, by the way, not like remote control. And I guess these robots are used to deliver room service in this hotel. When you get into your room at this hotel, everything is controlled on this iPad that sits between the two beds. So to turn on the TV, you need to use the iPad. To turn the channels, you can stream YouTube, you can stream Amazon, you can stream Netflix, everything from the iPad. To turn off and on the lights, iPad. So this iPad, basically, to order room service, this iPad, if you want to speak to the front desk, no need to call them. You actually can chat with them on an app on this iPad. So I guess it's kind of they're pushing towards the future of hotels. I will say I'm a little bit nervous. Like, what happens when the system that connects this iPad to the temperature of the room does not work? Like, I'm a little nervous of like when technology goes wrong. But
will the robots come to life and start murdering everyone, Westworld style?
Yeah. And it should be said this hotel is a lot smaller than I think the other Universal hotels. So the pool is a little bit smaller, is a little bit more intimate. It's not the way I like to experience theme parks. I like lots of people, to be honest. My favorite hotel there is Cabana Bay. If you ever have a chance to go to Universal in Florida, I just love the vibe of that hotel, and it has a lazy river and has these epic pools, and I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. But
it's my question, Peter. My wife and I are planning our Universal trip for next year. Fingers crossed it happens. And we were planning to stay at the Portofino Bay, which is one of the higher end hotels, because there's only two of us. We figured we'd splurge. It's like fancy Italian, village themed. Do you think Aventura, with its like tech upgrades, is worth us reconsidering, or should we go ahead and splurge on like the luxury place while we can?
Well, here's the thing. The luxury place that you're talking about, I think, comes with an unlimited express pass to the parks. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it does. And I think that's probably worth the extra money alone there.
Okay, that's actually the exact answer I needed to hear.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, this sounds like it's so unexciting. And in our Slack channel, I was jokingly, or not maybe jokingly, I was complaining about having to visit this. They were giving us a tour of their new value resort, and I was kind of like, joking that I didn't want to wake up in the morning for this, and I wasn't expecting to get anything out of this. But I'm actually surprised by this. Universal is opening this endless summer resort, and I think the portion that's opening at the end of the month, I think has like something like 770 rooms or something, 750 rooms. And they have another section of that. It's going to have 2,000. So it's going to eventually be a lot of people. They're building a fourth park in Orlando, and this is going to help accommodate those people. The thing that is surprising here is usually when you think of value resort, like when you stay at a value resort in Disney, it feels kind of cheap. It feels kind of like, bright colored wallpaper and just very very budget. And even I think Value Hotel at Disney is in the hundreds of dollars. This hotel, when it opens later this month on its non-peak time, will be $73 a night for a 7-night stay. And they're also offering a 2-bedroom suite option, which has 3 beds, so you could theoretically fit up to 6 people in there, and it has a kitchenette and everything like that. And that's only I think $130 a night or something like that. So, but this hotel looked great. I mean, I would not think that if you told me this was $150 or $200 a night hotel, it looked just honestly, it looked on par with the Aventura without the technology to me. But so I would say if you're planning a trip to this Hagrid's ride in Universal Studios Florida, you might want to consider actually staying at the Endless Summer Resort, because it looks like the Universal's offering an affordable option that is not being offered at Disney World, and the food and the drinks and everything just seems so much more affordable there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it feels very well timed with Disney World's 50th anniversary coming up in 2 years, and being at Disney and seeing all the construction projects everywhere to get the park spruced up and get new things ready for the anniversary. It really feels like Universal is saying, hey, coming down to Disney for the 50th? Well, there's a cheaper option if you don't want to stay on property. And it feels like a very, very clever move on their part. Very smart move.
Yeah, and you of course get that. You get a shuttle bus to the parks, or you can walk over to Volcano Bay. It's funny because I feel like back in the old days, and by the old days I mean maybe even 5-6 years ago, Universal was you'd book your vacation to Walt Disney World, and then you'd book an extra day to go up to Universal to their 1 or 2 parks, right? And now, in a couple years, they're going to have 4 parks. I feel like this is you can, even now, I think you can spend a week there and enjoy yourself for a week, where that wasn't possible a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, my wife and I are Disney's worst nightmare. We're going to Orlando, Florida next year and only doing Universal. So that's exactly what Disney fears, and we're becoming that. As much as I love Disney World, that is our current plan.
Yeah. And, well, you did visit Walt Disney World this past week, though, for the Toy Story 4 junket. When was the last time you've been to Disney World?
Oh, man, as much as I've kept on top of news and, followed it obsessively and bought the unofficial guides to read up what's changed, I haven't actually been to Disney World property since 2011. My family used to go every couple of years, and, we all grew up and we all started having our own families, and it became really, really hard to make regular trips of it. So it's been a long time, and so close to a decade, Peter.
Wow. Okay, so there's been a lot of new stuff that you have not seen before. You haven't seen Pandora, Toy Story Land, I'm guessing the Fantasyland expansions and all the stuff they've been doing at Epcot. So I guess let's start with the biggest thing there, Pandora, the World of Avatar. I know you've probably watched all the ride videos and the Tim Tracker videos of him exploring the park. By the way, I have so much respect for Tim Tracker. After trying to do this vlog thing, like at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and at this Universal event, it is a lot harder than that guy makes it look. Not that he makes it look easy. Well, I mean, he does make it look easy, but it is insane. It is not easy to be vlogging your theme park trip. So what was your experience like at Pandora?
I've been on the record saying I like the Avatar films. Avatar film. I don't love it. So I was really curious to see how it reacted to Pandora, and I was bowled over by it. I don't think any ride videos, I don't think any tours or photos do justice to what Disney pulled off here, led by Imagineer Joe Rohde, who's always been extremely interested in nature and conservation and culture. And the genius move of Pandora is that you can walk into it and enjoy it without having seen Avatar at all. There are almost no references to the characters from the film. All you got to know is that this was an alien world where human wars and human mining messed it up, and now you're part of an eco-tourist group visiting the alien planet and exploring its culture as part of a rebuilding effort where human organizations have essentially come and set up shop to assist the local tribes, the Na'vi tribes, in restoring the land. So it really fits into the message of the Animal Kingdom Park overall, which is about nature and conservation, but does it through this science fiction lens. And you don't have to know Avatar at all. And standing there below these floating mountains that they pulled off, it's a miracle of engineering. And the Flight of Passage ride, which is the simulator technology pushed up to the limit of what it could be. I was like in tears multiple times just being in Pandora, because I was so blown away by the sense of place and the sense of being in an alien world and the sense of purpose. In as much as anywhere else in the Animal Kingdom Park, I feel it fulfills the message of we are not alone on a planet and we need to share it. And man, if the movies that James Cameron's making, the sequels, can capture like an ounce of the magic I felt of being on Pandora and being inside this, recreation of the world that exists in his mind, and the sequels will be better than the first film for sure, because right now I'm a bigger Pandora fan than I am an Avatar fan.
What did you think of the rides?
Oh, Flight of Passage, it's a ride that's the theme is that you're being linked with an Avatar body to ride a Banshee over Pandora. It's a really, really amazing evolution of the Soarin' ride. If you've ridden Soarin' at Epcot or Disneyland, where you're facing a giant, massive IMAX screen on a simulator vehicle, except that it feels incredibly personal. Your vehicle literally breathes. You can feel like the Banshee breathing beneath you. The visuals are stunning. The 3D works. It is just this incredible execution where if you know theme park technology really well, you can see the seams, you can see how it works. But the first time through, I was just so taken with it. And I wrote it several more times during my time there. Thank you, FastPass. We almost skipped the 3-hour lines. And the number of people who I spoke to who were just, Disney World regulars or tourists who were waiting in line multiple times over their vacation, like the full-fledged 2 to 3 hour long line, because they were so moved by it and so taken with it. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen reactions to a ride quite like I've seen to Flight of Passage. And the second ride, which is the Nazi River Journey, is essentially an all-ages, very toddler-friendly boat ride through the jungles of Pandora. It has no thrills. It is very slow, but it is very atmospheric, has an amazing animatronics and visuals, but it's very much intended to be for kids who can't ride a Flight of Passage. A lot of people were talking crap about it when it first opened, but it's intended to be for children, and it's a really, really atmospheric, nice children's ride, but Flight of Passage is next level.
Yeah, my problem with Navi River Journey is I love Disney boat rides. I love dark rides, and I was looking forward to that more than I was looking to Flight of Passage. And this ride is short. It's like, I feel like it feels like it's less than 2 minutes. I'm not sure how long it actually is. And it lacks any story. There's no characters. You do see a Navi at the end of the ride. I guess you see some from afar, right? And I don't know, like it spends so much on atmosphere, but I feel like it's missing that story.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I imagine the intention here is less to tell a story and more to create an alien version of the Kilimanjaro Safaris ride that you see elsewhere, where instead of a leisurely, drive through the African savannah, you're getting a leisurely boat ride through the alien jungle. So I'd argue that the lack of story is intentional, that you are just taking a boat ride through a jungle instead of experiencing a narrative. But yeah, I understand the criticism, but it's one that I honestly wasn't bothered by. But then again, I only waited 5 minutes for it. I did find a passage and walked right over to it. It was only a 5-minute wait. I jumped on and got right on. So I imagine if you waited more than an hour for this, you would probably be pretty unhappy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so how does the newest land in Walt Disney World in Hollywood Studios, Toy Story Land, compete?
Toy Story Land is not as immediately impressive as Pandora, but I don't think it sets out to be. It is at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's built over a portion of the old backlot tour, and the theme is that you're in Andy's backyard. So everything's sort of oversized. All the buildings are meant to be like toy boxes and balls and props. Like literally, the restaurant is like an oversized lunchbox. It's literally called Andy's Lunchbox. So it's all very cute. It's all very nice. It is not a place where I stood in awe and took dozens of pictures like I did with Pandora, but it's an extremely well-themed, well-executed land. They built the old Toy Story Mania ride into it, so that one exists already, and they built a new entrance for it that fits the theme. The big draw here is the new Slinky Dog Coaster, which is a family coaster, which, like Hagrid's coaster, is built on the accelerated launch technology, where instead of having the long lift hills to get up and drop you up from a high place, it uses the technology to launch you with the sudden speeds. And it probably only goes maybe 30, 40 miles an hour, but it has a really nice sense of speed, a nice layout. It takes you around, things like giant building blocks, some familiar characters, some animatronics. It has a lot of personality, and there are definitely more intense and better coasters on Disney property. But if there are kids like in your family who maybe need to know if they're brave enough for Big Thunder, or need to know if they're brave enough for Space Mountain, or maybe getting a little too big for the Barnstormer over at Magic Kingdom or Disneyland. I can't remember where that one is. This is the way to, the next level up. I mean, I rode it a couple times, and I found it to be a very charming, very brisky, very fun coaster. And perhaps most importantly for us, from the highest point on it, if you look to your right, you can see directly into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So I was able to get a few really good looks at the Disney World version of that land.
More on that later. Okay, so what other new things did you get to experience? I guess you saw for the first time Fantasyland's expansion there?
Yeah, they were actually building new Fantasyland when I was last there, and they've added a few new rides. The biggest one being Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which remains the biggest draw at the Magic Kingdom right now. There were regularly 4-hour waits for it. I managed to ride it a few times. Thank you once again to Fast Pass, and that is a really, really good ride. I mean, I'm not sure how I would feel if I waited 4 hours for it, but it's another family coaster, but it's more intense than Slinky Dog, and the theme is based on So 27 Dwarfs. You are riding a out of control minecart through a series of mountains and tunnels. There's one extended dark ride scene where you get to see the 7 dwarfs at work, and this thing has a kick to it. It is not particularly fast, but like Hagrid and other classic Disney coasters, it takes advantage of space to make up for the fact that it's not as fast or as inherently thrilling as bigger, more extreme coasters. So even the sense of speed comes from narrowly missing mountains. It comes from spiraling through really tight areas. And I rode it once during the day and once at night. And at night you get these amazing views of Fantasyland, and it makes an already smooth and fast coaster really exciting. Like, I was impressed by how exciting this family coaster was. Peter, I know you rode this back when it first opened. Do you agree with me on this one?
Well, Jacob, when I rode it, I went into the line. It was an hour wait, and when we were in the line for this ride, Florida, as it often does, started to thunderstorm. And so I was like, oh, we'll wait it out in this ride. And then we waited another hour, and it still didn't stop raining. Then we waited. At that point, it's like, should I leave? If I leave now, I get nothing, and this 2-hour time investment was for nothing. So I waited another hour, eventually got in on it. So I spent 3 hours to wait to get onto this ride. And I feel like that tainted my experience a little bit. Because I don't know. I think I was expecting a little bit more. Like, I remember being at D23, and the coaster car design is like based on these mine carts, which they were all like selling with these videos from Imagineering that they would sway back and forth as you made turns and stuff. And I feel like you don't feel that as much It almost like what happens is when the track begins to go on an edge, you as a car just remain vertical. So it like you don't experience much of like the turns, if that makes sense, as a normal coaster. So I feel like it's fine. I don't want to hate on a ride that everybody loves and spends 4 hours to see. I do like the animatronic dark ride end of the ride, and it is fun. Like I mean, if I could just have a fast pass and walk on, sure.
Yeah, well, I liked it a lot more than Peter did, but I also think Peter owes it another shot. So we'll make that happen next time you're in Disney World, Peter.
Yeah.
The last like big new thing I did was I did Frozen Ever After, which replaced Maelstrom at Epcot, and this was really controversial when it first happened because Maelstrom, the Norway themed folklore ride, had a big following. Even though if you go back and watch a video of it, it's actually pretty terrible. As somebody who used to love it to death, and the Frozen retheme of it is really good. It is a very classical structure of a Disney dark ride, except it's on a boat. It uses the Maelstrom track, so it's the same basic ride, but very impressive animatronics, very impressive visuals, really good use of Let It Go, where Elsa sings to you as you plummet backwards over a waterfall. And the kids in the vehicle with me loved it to death, and I was really charmed by it. Peter, have you been to Epcot since it's opened?
Yes, I actually love this ride, and I was a big fan of Maelstrom, and I think that we're talking about Hondo at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. We're talking about this great animatronic at the end of Na'vi River Journey. I feel like the Olaf animatronic at the beginning of this ride is on par with those animatronics, and people don't give it enough love. Like, it's like walking around and moving. Like, yeah. It is a really cool animatronic, and I mean, this is a retrofitted ride, but I think they did the best they possibly could with it. Like, it feels to me like on the level of like what they did with Guardians Galaxy Mission Breakout at Tower of Terror. Like, it feels like it's a best possible scenario.
Yeah, and to the cast members' credit, they kept that line moving. I was never longer than an hour while I was there for a ride that, opened to having like 4 hour long waits. And, all power to the crews loading those boats, because I've never seen a faster, more efficient team at Disney property. It was really impressive. Okay,
so you used to vacation a lot at Walt Disney World, so I'm wondering, like, what kind of old favorites did you revisit on this trip?
Oh, goodness. I don't want to go over everything because I ended up riding upwards of 30 rides, including re-rides. They're getting close to 40 rides overall. And
it should be noted that you got the red carpet treatment here because
yes,
you were given, like, unlimited fast passes?
Not unlimited. I had a certain number per park. But what I ended up doing was that this is my first time being here since the My Disney Experience app was used. And they had the magic bands, the RFID bracelets, which you use to, use for fast pass, use for your key, for your room, use for your park entry, use to pay for things. And what I would do is I would constantly check the app, and I would find people banning their fast passes quite often. So even though I was given a lot of free passes by Disney because I didn't have time to plan a trip otherwise, and they had me down there, I wrote a lot of things just by constantly checking the app when I was waiting in line and constantly grabbing fast passes as they came available. That's how I was able to ride Flight of Passage several more times. I was able to ride several favorites constantly. So I'll get to more advice for solo travelers in a little bit, but I was pleasantly surprised by how good the app is and how well it works with the magic bands when it comes to navigating the parks and getting things done and shifting your schedule. But yeah, in terms of favorites, Test Track is still a favorite of mine. Splash Mountain, still a classic. Haunted Mansion, greatest theme park ride of all time, quite possibly. I rode it 3 times, and each time I noticed new things I'd never noticed before, and that is just a work of art.
Did you spend time in the interactive queue of that ride?
No. I every time I went, I managed to either grab a new fast pass or use my or use a current fast pass. So I walked right in.
I love some of the touches. That's one of my favorite rides, and I love some of the touches that Walt Disney World does that are not in Disneyland, like the end scene where like the ghost hitches a ride and your card is fully digital, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I want to pay special attention to the single rider line for Test Track, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Expedition Everest, all of which allow me to ride those rides multiple times with almost no wait. So if you're willing to split your group up or you're a solo traveler, those lines are lifesavers. I think I rode Expedition Everest and Animal Kingdom about 10 times because it was literally walk-on if you were a single rider. and that ride is my favorite coaster at Disney World. The perfect execution of a great roller coaster and theme. The sense of being, in the Himalayas and encountering a Yeti and being on a disastrous train ride. It feels so evocative of its theme while being incredibly exciting. I think it's just this modern miracle of theme park design. But I want to say that a moment that I'll never forget, the moment that really reminded me why I love theme parks, was riding Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in the back row, which is the best row because it's where the wildest and fastest, at night during the fireworks show, so you can smell and see fireworks the entire time you're riding the ride. Was one of the most emotionally overloaded moments of my life. Before I noticed that in the row in front of me there was a mother and her 6-year-old son having like a genuine memory making moment in the as the ride pulled into the station, as they both hugged each other and were talking about how cool it was that they rode it at night with the fireworks. And it was just one of those things that made me go, man, I hate when people say it made me feel like a kid again, because I don't need to feel like a kid again, but it reminded me of the feelings I had as a kid, and which I think is a slightly different thing. And it just felt magical in a way that, reawakened why I'm so obsessed with these parks and why I follow this news and why I keep up to date with everything, even though I don't get down there as often as I would like.
Very cool. Okay, let's talk about what it's like to be so. I guess you talked about how the single rider lines help. What else is what is dining at Disney solo?
With the exception of Be Our Guest, the extremely popular Beauty and Beast restaurant, I could walk into any restaurant on Disney property as a solo diner and be seated within 20 minutes. I had no problem getting reservations. I had no problem doing walk-ins. I talked at length about food in a previous podcast this week, so I won't go in detail here. But I was able to make split moment decisions. I was able to go where I wanted to go. I was able to be where I needed to be. I didn't need to take anyone else's opinion into account. And this may not sound great to everybody. I imagine a lot of people don't want to go to a theme park alone. But if that sounds appealing to you, if you've thought about maybe I should visit a theme park alone and see how I like it, do it. I had a great time. And yeah, I would have loved to have been with friends, but being able to change my plans at the last second and guarantee being able to eat what I wanted to eat and be able to walk to any place and see that one seat left at the bar and sit down and have a drink without having to worry about finding a second seat. It was just an incredible experience. And I had so much fun doing it. And using the app and the Magic Band and letting yourself be flexible and looking for those fast pass slots as they open up means that being a solo traveler at Disney is probably better than going with a group, if you don't mind doing so.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of baggage with groups. I've been going a lot recently to Disneyland, to Galaxy's Edge with, these big group reservations, sometimes 6, sometimes 12, and making a decision that will satisfy all those people is not easy. But, okay, let's talk about how different do these parks feel now compared to when you were there when you were younger?
The Magic Bands have changed a lot, because back in the day when you had paper fast passes, you could be more flexible. But now Disney really wants you to plan ahead, and because Disney gave press, fast passes so they could be more flexible, I know that if I was going here on my own as a trip that was not part of a work function, I would have had to plan 6 months, ahead to figure out, okay, on this day I'm going to do this, on this day I'm going to do that. And this seems frustrating, but once I had the Magic Band on and once I had the app open, I realized that the digital integration of the Disney experience really does work for me. I found myself really taken by being able to do everything through an app. And between that and the fact that the parks are currently undergoing massive refurbishments, every park had lots of construction going on to prepare for the 50th anniversary, makes you think that Disney is only getting better. I mean, it's getting more expensive. It is not cheap. And when I go again, it's going to be like credit card statement from hell. But they are offering a really one of a kind experience still. I mean, the Disney magic or Disney innovation, it's still there. And I know I'll be back, and I know they're making it more convenient and easier to plan, and they're watching all of your movements through that app to know which you like. And I found it to be refreshingly the same, but refreshingly different.
I'm hoping that Magic Bands never come to Disneyland, because Disneyland is a park of much more annual pass holders and locals, which I fit into that category. And I don't plan going to the park sometimes, days in advance, never mind 6 months in advance. And, like you say, sometimes like, a fast pass to, I guess, Flight of Passage is sold out months before that date. And I know things change, and you were able to, because you're a single rider, were able to, accommodate, like, to just jump on whatever was available. But I feel like I don't want that. I want to be more spontaneous with my theme park visits.
Yeah, I get that. I hope Disneyland stays that way too, because when I plan to visit Disneyland in the near future, I intend to take full advantage of that flexibility.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you all the wonders of Max Pass, which is actually a pretty cool system that they have at Disneyland. But okay, so I guess what tips do you have to future visitors of Walt Disney World?
Sunscreen is no joke. I applied it every 80 minutes. I did not get burned. Everywhere I looked, sunburned faces, people looking miserable. Do not skimp on that sunscreen. I know it sounds like an obvious piece of advice, but everybody does. Everybody forgets. Buy a small portable backpack you can bring on almost every Disney ride. They all allow storage, and apply it constantly. You do this, you will not get burned, I promise. Wear the best shoes you can. I brought 2 pairs of shoes. The first one literally fell apart off day one. The heel came off on my way back to the hotel. Second pair functioned a lot better, so bring your shoes you know are reliable. And finally, stay hydrated. Once again, it seems super obvious, but I drank 2 liters of water a day and still came home extremely dehydrated. Always have water on your person. Always drink it in a restaurant. Every place on Disney property will give you ice water in a cup for free. Take advantage of this. And this is all no joke. Like, it sounds so obvious, but sometimes you're so wrapped up in your experience, you forget about the sunscreen, you forget about shoes, you forget about water, and by day 2, you will be miserable if you don't do this. So if you're planning a trip, especially during June or July to Florida, do this or you will regret it.
Okay, I think that's good advice. A lot of it, I feel like, is obvious, but even when you were listing some of that, like bringing extra pair of shoes, I didn't, and if that had happened to me, I would have been screwed. So, yeah. Brad, you were in Los Angeles for Ghostbusters Fan Fest, which I know you talked about on the water cooler episode that we published earlier this week. But while you were in town, you got a chance to go to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
I did. This was maybe like the best unexpected surprise thing that has ever happened to me, probably. It was just a great, perfect storm of coincidence and timing and circumstances, and you and your friends being awesome, because you guys had an open slot on one of your reservations since one of your friends couldn't go, and thankfully Disney wasn't being as strict about their reservation policies, because up until that point they were being pretty stringent about the names that were on the reservations, and they had to match, otherwise they wouldn't let people in. But they started getting more loose about that, apparently, as the park started opening. So I was able to take a slot in that reservation, and man, this was just it's just awesome. I didn't think that I was going to be able to do this for like at least 2 years, if not more. So just to be able to do it and to go with you guys because you were so seasoned, that made it so much better and easier to navigate. Because I feel like if I would have went by myself or anything like that, like I probably would have researched beforehand, but that just made it so much easier to know where to go first and what, the order in which we needed to get done, so that I could prioritize what I wanted out of Galaxy's Edge, and that kind of thing. And this place is just awesome. Disney pulled out all the stops when it came to making this feel like you are on some Star Wars planet. It is so intricately detailed, down to the most minute, paint and just props and characters, like all the cast members, just all this stuff. It is seriously wonderful and a magical experience.
Yeah, for sure. And we should probably thank by name Reza for getting you on his reservation, Nate for getting you in the park, and Christina for getting you to the front of the line of the Build Your Own Lightsaber experience.
Yeah, seriously. All of your friends made this such an incredible experience for me, because they all helped in some way to make it happen.
Yeah, so let's talk about the lightsaber experience at Savi's workshop, because I know this was the thing that you were most excited to do.
Yeah, when I found out that I was finally going, that's what I wanted to prioritize, because I've always wanted a custom lightsaber there are places online that you can find that make them for you that you can buy. They've always been very expensive, but this was the first time where it was really affords you the opportunity to have an experience building your own lightsaber. And it's not just as simple as walking into a shop and, they have pieces around and it's like, make your lightsaber and go to the register. They make a true experience out of it. If you've seen Peter's video, then you already know this. If you haven't, I would and you plan on going, I would recommend saving it, because I once I found out I was going, I specifically did not watch Peter's video that chronicles what it's like to build a lightsaber.
Brad, are you trying to tell people not to watch my videos?
But kind of. Like I want them to watch eventually, but like it really just it really is one of those experiences that like you want to like have it yourself for the first time. It's
I will say this though, I think a lot of people see that $200 price point and are like, oh, we can't afford that. Like we don't really need to do that. That's whatever. And I feel like that video will convince you. Do you know what I mean? It will convince you
that is true. That is true. If you are skeptical whether or not it's worth it, maybe watch that video and see, because they treat it in such a ceremonial, serious way, and it just taps you into really this feeling of like you are a Jedi, or whatever you want to be, and you have the ability to tap into the Force and build this lightsaber with your hands. And like it really is kind of moving as a lifelong Star Wars fan. Like I will admit that like once I started doing it, I had some tears well up in my eyes just because it feels that cool. And there's just the way the experience unfolds. It's very fun, and it's just very again like there's really no other word to describe it except magical. It is a magical experience.
Yeah, I called it a religious experience because I feel like by the end of that whole thing, you feel like you are one with the Force and the other Jedi that built the sabers with you. It feels so cool. And let's talk about the ride. Let's talk about Smuggler's Run. What did you think of the first attraction here at Galaxy's Edge?
Obviously, this was one of the other things I was most excited to do, because everyone has dreamed about being in the Millennium Falcon ever since they saw Star Wars. And what's most impressive to me is, first of all, even when you're waiting in line, Disney does such a great job with this ride in particular, and some of the other rides in the park too, of really not making it feel like you're waiting in a line. The line moves pretty swiftly. They have an entire like environment built inside where you're walking through this shop where they're trying to fix a speeder, and it's where the Millennium Falcon is currently docked as you're waiting to get your mission from Hondo Ohnaka. And it's just it's entertaining while you're waiting in line. That there's voiceover of these characters who are trying to modify this speeder that's sitting in the middle of the line that you move around, that goes up ramps and around this set piece. I realized as we were walking through that one of them is Ben Schwartz, which makes it that much more fun. And so yeah, like just that from the beginning is really cool. And then you get to walk into the Millennium Falcon, and the door you enter is the exact door that Han and Chewie walk into in Force Awakens when he's like, Chewie, we're home. And you like this feeling of nostalgia and excitement and amazement just warms over you as you're walking through the real hallways of the Millennium Falcon. And you can sit at the Jarek Hologest table, and you can go to that like little darker mechanical corner where Leia and Han have that intimate moment in Empire Strikes Back. And there's just all these cool details to walk around the Falcon. And then you get to the ride itself, which is in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and they have just perfectly recreated the cockpit, obviously with some more seats since 6 people can sit in the ride, but it feels so cool. And since all you guys had done it before, no one was clamoring as much as me to pilot the Millennium Falcon. So I got to sit in one of the pilot seats. And
we put you in the good pilot seat too.
You did put me in the good pilot seat, because the pilot seat on the right side gets to do something very, very cool, which I wouldn't have even thought of if you guys wouldn't have known ahead of time. And that particular moment, I won't say what it is, and I'm sure if you are already thinking about it, you know what it is, but it feels awesome. And the ride's really fun. it's definitely a glorified video game, but the way the ride moves and shakes, and the screen, since it completely engulfs the cockpit, you get the same motion feelings that you do if you were on one of those normal digital kind of roller coaster rides, or like the kinds that you often see at Universal Studios. There's one part of the ride where the ship like dips completely down, like dropping, and I felt it in my stomach. And during the ride, I was holding on to the pilot controls, and I gripped them because I was like, oh shit, because like you really feel like you're falling in the Falcon. But it was such a fun experience. I would love to do it again and go through the other positions. It was fantastic.
Well, very cool. Did you only get to ride it once, or did you ride it twice?
Yeah, I did, because it was one of those things where, like, because of the way the reservations work, once it gets to the last hour, that's when they start letting the next group in, at least in the evening.
Yeah.
And so it started getting really crowded again, and we just didn't have time to hop back on it. I almost went back on as a single rider, but then we decided to get some pictures in front of the Falcon instead.
I guess talk about the food, because you were often talking about food on the water cooler. What did you think of the food in A Galaxy Far, Far Away?
Yeah, I didn't get to try a ton of stuff, but I did still hop around and check out some of the things that I was most excited to try. We got into Oga's Cantina, which was great, and I tried the Blue Bantha, which is a blue milk drink. This is the one that's different from the milk that you get at the milk stand outside of the cantina, though, because it's not frozen. You're much more standard liquidy kind of milk, and that's the one that comes with a special cookie that's on top of it. It's like a sugar cookie stacked with one of those Girl Scout coconut cookies, the Samoa cookies. And the cookie's really good. I really like the blue milk. Some people have said that they didn't really enjoy it very much. It's not what I expected, but I still very much enjoyed it, because I was expecting something akin to like a milkshake flavor, maybe like a vanilla style milkshake flavor, something like that. But it has some fruity flavor to it, and it's pretty enjoyable. And then I also had
why didn't they make the blue and green milk milkshakes? Like, that sounds like, I don't know. Okay, I'm not gonna.
I feel like maybe it would have been too familiar, because maybe it is they probably thought, a lot of people are going to expect that, so when they try it, let's make it seem like, oh wait, this is something different, But yeah, so I had the Blue Bantha. I also had this little snack thing that's called Oga's Obsession, which is basically a Jell-O thing that's in like a larger petri dish, and they sprinkle these Pop Rocks on one side of it, and then inside the Jell-O itself are these little like bulbs, basically, or like little like balls that are filled with fruity liquid. They're kind of like the same things you would find in boba tea, but these have a really sweet fruit flavor in them, and that was delicious. That was a really good like sweet snack to have at the cantina.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of my favorite things there, and because it feels so alien. Even though it's like stuff that we have here. Obviously, everybody's had boba, everybody's had Jell-O, everybody's had Pop Rocks, but like the combination of it looks so alien and tastes so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went to the milk stand, and since I already had the Blue Bantha, I got the green frozen milk, and I actually like the green milk better than the flavor of the Blue Bantha. It's also fruity, but it also has this kind of flowery taste to it, which made it interesting. So that was very good. It's also very refreshing because it's like a creamy, slushy kind of texture. And then I went to Ronto's Roasters, which is the restaurant where they have a huge pod racer engine cooking meats. And I got the Ronto wrap, which is like this pepperoni sausage wrapped in a pita with slaw on it. And then there's some kind of other kind of meat in it. I forget what it was, but that tasted really good. And then I also had this a Tatooine Sunset with it, which was like this tea that had melon flavors and berry in it, and that was also very good. And yeah, we tried some of the popcorn that's available at the Kettle, which is a mix of sweet and somewhat spicy. And I think that was about it on the food front.
What else did you buy other than the lightsaber?
Honestly, this time I didn't really buy anything, because before I knew I was going, I had you pick up some things because you were going several times. And so the stuff that I had you buy me was like I got chance cubes. I got this magnet that looks like a restrainer bolt. I got the much cooler version of Sabak, which is way better than the one that Hasbro released when Solo came out. But because I wasn't expecting it, I wasn't really budgeted to buy a ton of stuff at Galaxy's Edge. So I really just made sure that I spent my money on the lightsaber because that's what I wanted the most.
Yeah, by the way, I have a video that should be going up next week about the most ridiculous things that are on sale at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the YouTube channel that I will link in the show notes.
There is one other thing that I want to buy. I'll probably have you buy when you go back again is so they sell that ring that Rose has in The Last Jedi, the Resistance ring where you spin like the lever on the side of it and it reveals the Rebel Alliance logo. They sell that actual ring as a replica for $150, and I kind of want that. But if you want to spend less money but have the same kind of cool thing, they have a keychain that looks like a larger version of the ring. It's just flat, and you can hook it onto your keys. That has the exact same mechanism that reveals the Rebel Alliance logo in that cool, secretive way.
Yeah, it's much more affordable too.
Significantly more affordable.
And you also got some photos of you and the lightsaber at night in front of the Falcon, which I think is like the biggest tip. If anybody's going to Galaxy's Edge, try to plan your time so it's like within like, the 5 to 8, 9 or whatever, so you can be there during the day and see it at night because it looks totally different at night, and you get to get photos. If you get a lightsaber, if you're lucky to get a lightsaber, you can get your photos in front of the Falcon with that. What did you think of the place at night?
It looks even better at night than it does during the day. You get to see a lot more of the details during the day, just how much effort they put into it. But at night, they bring out these different colored lights that they at first it kind of simulates it getting darker. The lights get a little bit warmer at first, and then they start turning to like this blue light, almost as if there's a moonlight shining over everything. But you start to see the lights of the ship on it too. There's a ship that's above Docking Bay 7. That is just sitting up on the roof, and then at night you see the lights on the back of it that make it look like the engines are on. And there's a lot of cool details like that come out at night. And like Peter said, the photos that you can take in front of the Millennium Falcon look a lot cooler at night because of the lighting, especially if you have a lightsaber.
Jacob, we need to get you out here to go to Galaxy's Edge.
Working on it. I'm working on it.
I will say too, we talked about this, and I don't know if you talked about this on the podcast or you just talked about it behind the scenes, but I am very concerned for people who will be going to Galaxy's Edge after June 24th and can't take advantage of the reservation system, because I have no idea how easy it's going to be to get a lightsaber when you can just go to the park first thing in the morning and there's no limit to how long you can stay in there. Because with the reservation system, it makes it so that if you're there right away, you can be first in line and you can get your lightsaber done out of the way. And if you're late, then you likely won't get in the line at all, because they can only do I think it's something like 100 or 125 people within the 4-hour window that can build a lightsaber, because that's how much time it takes for each group to do it. And so I feel like unless you're at Galaxy's Edge first thing in the morning at Disneyland, all of the reservation slots for the entire day are probably going to fill up right away, and you just won't be able to do it at all unless you're there first thing. Whereas with the reservation system, if you're there at the very beginning of your own reservation window, you have a much greater chance of doing it.
Yeah, I know Jacob was trying to grill me on how this park is going to work when it's open to the public, and I mean, without reservations, and I really don't know how it's going to handle that stress. Like I know that they're still having a fast pass system to get into that land, but I don't think that has an exit time. I think that's just to get in, and I feel like people aren't going to leave. So it's going to be crazy. It'll be interesting to see come June 24th what it's like. But we've gone nearly an hour here, so I think that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. If you are interested in theme parks, check out my video my video channel on YouTube called Ordinary Adventures. We're doing a bunch of trips to Galaxy's Edge and Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and a bunch of stuff from Universal Orlando is going to be hitting this and next week. So check out that. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday on iTunes, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. And please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends. Spread the word. And we'll see you tomorrow.